A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm Ankita from NASSCOM. Today is not a regular webinar, but you will hear an interesting conversation between two experts. And I'm sure you will make it this session all the more intriguing and very interesting. So today I have with me Mandar Tingse and Ravi Joseph Pinto. Both are Director Product Management in Oracle. Welcome Ravi and Mandar. Before I hand over to them, just two more things. Please ask questions anytime during the session and they will be answered at the end of the webinar. Second, plus do not forget your feedback to help me better my future sessions. Over to you, Mandar and Ravi.
Thanks, Ankita. Hello, everyone. Hi, this is Mandar Tingse from Oracle Cloud Platform Product Management Team.
And this is Ravi Pinto from Oracle Cloud Product Management Team.
Yeah, and thanks to NASSCOM, Ankita, and the team for giving us this chance and opportunity. Hope we have the audience. Hope the audience finds this useful and interesting. So today we are going to take you through marketing aspect of product management areas.
And we're going to do it slightly differently. We will make it more interactive between the two of us. And we hope you like this format.
Yeah. And you must have noticed that it's different for us as well. So we are also kind of trying to do this for the first time. So let's see how it goes. Everyone, so please note this disclaimer. The important thing here is that this session and the series is for education purpose only. So the content, the information that we are sharing can be used as a education information only.
So yeah. So we have seen the webinars till today, which have focused on the core product management or product development, which is more of strategy building, actual product development, etc. One of the things that gets left off is how exactly do you take the product to market and make it a success. So we are going to focus on the product marketing part, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. And we will go into aspects such as go-to-market, customer acquisition, and enablement areas.
Yeah, and as we come from Oracle, our experience is around enterprise customers, enterprise products, or enterprise cloud services. So while so we'll be using that experience, but we feel that it can be relevant for you if you are in some other domain or other areas as well. So it should be useful for you in that respect as well. But surely you will hear us more from this side of the story. So Ravi, what is the product example that you're going to use for this conversation?
So Mandar, we are going to or rather I'm going to use a product that was newly launched by Oracle last year. It was a net new product that we built, and we launched that particular product very successfully. I don't really want to name the product because Oracle portfolio is large, and I don't want to leave an impression that we are focusing this particular strategy only on that sort of a product. What about you, Mandar?
Yeah, I'll use slightly different example. I mean, it is about something that we did here in Oracle, where we started with a strategy. We started developing and building, and we had customers as well. And then we changed the strategy midway, and we relaunched the cloud service. So I'm going to talk about something in relevance to that. But again, I will not really get into the product information or the cloud, naming the cloud service that I'm talking about. But we'll use that as a reference for the further conversations that as we go through. So yeah, so now we get into the key areas. So what is that you're trying to show from this block diagram, Ravi?
Okay, so what we are talking about here is how our talk is going to be laid out. How do we go forward in this webinar? We are going to use this as the blueprint for our discussion today. We'll start with the strategy, product building strategy. That's where everything starts. But we will go into more details about how do we go verifying, how do we evangelize the product, how do we plan a go-to-market strategy, and how do we acquire customers and ensure that customers keep on using those services and then expand on the usage of that.
Okay, so
let's go one by one through this activity. We'll start with the building strategy. So I'll talk about building strategy for a net new product launch. And what we did over here was to identify the product area, which is a transformational technology. It's a technology that is still being sort of put together for solution building. And what we wanted to do was to first identify whether this particular product and this particular way of building application would have enough traction from our customers, existing and otherwise, to be useful and to be successful in the market. So the way we went about building this strategy, and I'm pretty sure a lot of product managers would know this sort of blueprint, is that we created a vision of the product, and then validated that vision with some of our existing big customers. We created certain prototypes, certain POCs that were discarded, and then decided on one particular POC. And then we went ahead and got into the next stage of the product management. Okay. What about you, Mandar?
So like I said before, we kind of relaunched our service again, and yeah, this picture actually has some similarity with what we did. So we changed our plans on the direction of the cloud service when we realized that the customer preferences have changed. And this image here is something similar where this is around 2015, 2016 when this image got viral. And this is about some conference that happened, Microsoft conference. And this was when Microsoft still had around 88 to 92% of PC market share. But the picture was not showing the same. And that's when it kick-started, or they felt that they have to change their strategy around this. So for us, however, we found that in terms of market size, as well as our traditional expertise was in an area where we were not focused on. And so when we started getting more inquiries and asks from customers around that area, it triggered us to rethink on the way we started on our journey. So we then worked around the strategy to reintroduce the cloud service with new focus while ensuring that the existing customers were not ignored. So that's how we.
So how did you go about the strategy phase?
Yeah, as we started to relook at our product, we had to focus on what exact problem we want to solve. So this here, the document that I have put is something that we see from pragmatic marketing, a template. So we use something similar. We used a structured approach similar to this pragmatic positioning document template. So the focus was on the customer problem that we want to address. So there were inquiries, there were asks, but we wanted to be sure on what areas that we want to focus on. How we want to address the problem, like we already had launched some of the capabilities, how much of it can be reused so that we are much faster to market. Followed by messaging generally associated to a personas or set of personas that needs to be captured. And then getting into key capabilities that need to be part of the product and capturing innovations around it. So that was in general high level way of how we went about coming up with the strategy details.
Right, so that's true for the new product as well. In our case, we got some statistics that were captured from market research, from the analyst projections, as well as our existing customers. So these customers had already shown interest in this sort of a product that we were planning to launch. And they gave us an idea of the scale that they want to build their applications with. So that gave us the confidence to go ahead with the product and go to this stage where once we had built the early releases, we could go to the next stage of solidifying the release, but parallelly starting out with the product marketing as well.
So let's discuss the verify strategy. This is important. There is time lag.
Hi, Ravi and Mandar, can you hear me?
Yeah. Are we audible? Hello?
Yeah, your voice is breaking and sometimes it's going very bleak.
Oh, is it? What we are on headphone. Both our
Yeah,
voices.
now it's better. Yeah, now it's better, but it's going on and off like restaurant.
Okay.
How is it now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. Thanks. So I hope. So just ping us immediately
Thank
if it
you.
is happening again. Yeah. Thanks.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So let's now get into the discussion of verify stage. Yeah, this is important. There is a time lag between building and actually getting the product to the customers. So Ravi, what's your thoughts around it?
Yeah, so like Steve Blank says, you need to get out and reach out to your customers. Okay, listen, verify, and keep on doing that because today the market is very dynamic. Things change, there are new technologies that come in, and those are the risks that are associated with these product launches, product taking to market, etc. Now, one of the ways of controlling that risk is to look at various procedures such as non-disclosure agreement. So for example, when you are launching the product with a smaller set of customers, like a beta testing phase, you are protected from the downside of the information leaking out to the larger market. You also, of course, don't want to get into a stage where your product gets bad rep or bad reputation in the early beta phase itself. The other thing that we want to highlight is what we are now getting into is not really the product building strategy, but verifying that whatever minimum viable product has been built is actually going to be useful and for the customers and to go to the next stage.
So you're basically talking about the evangelize and beta stage. Yeah. So beta has become important, and beta has become important not just for engineering to understand the product usability and functional gaps, but it has become important step for marketing team as well, as it has helped many a times to have viral marketing and attract your target customers, in fact new target customers which you have not really planned for. And a lot of product organizations are using beta phase to solicit customers or prospect feedback. And betas may not be general public, it can be both closed loop as well as public. Here is an example of Oracle, how we have, kind of announced our beta. This is for our database 19C program.
Right. So there are beta programs which you can run publicly, like the one that we are showing here for one of our products, or you can run a very closed beta. Now, this would be with your very, probably very large, very strategic customers. It could also be with your partners. And one of the things that Oracle has consistently been doing is to run beta internally as well with our own technical folks. Now that gives us a lot of feedback that helps us in tuning the actual product. It also helps us find out any last minute hitches or any bugs which are showstoppers and that need to be knocked out before the product actually is released. So yes, beta is very, very important. It gets your internal folks energized about this particular product. So they go and talk more externally as well. And your larger customers are ready to talk about it to the larger potential market when you actually launch this particular product.
Okay, so let's move to the next stage, which is go to market, GTM.
So GTM is very, very important, Mandar. There's always been a talk about if you build it, they will come. Now, what that essentially meant is that if you build a good product, then people will automatically start using it. But that's not the case that a lot of people have recently seen. That was probably true for going and creating products earlier, like about 5-10 years back, on-premises products. But today, when your services are available on cloud, it is accessible very, very quickly with minimum onboarding costs. You need to tell to the market what is it exactly that you're bringing to them. So just building and thinking that people will come and start using your product or your service is just not going to cut it. And from that particular perspective, I think we should get into a very detailed discussion of this particular slide. So Mandar, why don't you go into details of this?
Yeah, so sure. And like I said, like you said, this is especially for enterprise products and enterprise customers. We need to have some strategy or need to have a plan in place. So you generally like to have all the answers before you start your GTM activity, answers to what, who, how, and where, and we get into the details of it. So what is basically what your positioning document or the business case that you have started with will generally have. But what it needs to be done is it needs to be translated into a sales-friendly sales place so that the sales team can consume it and start talking about it or communicating to the customers in a very easy business-friendly language. Generally, sales plays also have target segments so that sales guys know what customers to reach out to. So it generally also has who are they going to focus. So the who part of the area. But many a time this also is about the size of the customers you want to focus because the solutions might be too technical or it might be about some price related consciousness that some customers might have, or it has some prerequisites that you can't go across all customers. Sales plays and product details also needs a systematic enablement plan. So it's your sales, you have to create an ecosystem, internal as well as external. And for that, you need to have a plan in place. That will determine how would you reach out across the region or the plan that you have in different regions. So that then the ecosystem helps you to go across your customers. And finally, you might have to decide where you exactly want to launch. It might not be across every place. It might be that you want to, especially if it's a cloud service, maybe data center becomes important and you might want to start on those regions where your data centers are in place. Or you want to do it in a controlled manner in certain geographies. It can be based on partners. All of those aspects will play a role in deciding where you want to start on. So this is at a very high level GTM plan that can be thought of?
So yeah, what I would want to do, Mandar, is also talk about the product that we launched in context of this particular diagram. So we were very, very clear about what the value proposition of this product was going to be. And the customers are also very clear. It is at this point in time a very niche area, but customers are looking for solid, reliable enterprise player in that particular market segment or for that particular product. So we also understood who are the customers that we are targeting. We wanted to keep away with a lot of frills, lot of fancy that is associated with this particular product. And we wanted to focus on very specific use cases in targeted segments. These segments were FSI, logistics, and government, right? So that kind of determined our focus. And in that particular focus, we also identified what sort of applications are people looking in this particular area. And that is how, once we've decided on this focused area, focused set of use cases that we need to go, what we did is to start enabling our internal folks, our partners, start giving them inputs that this is what is happening. Some partners already knew about this particular product because of the beta participation, but the channel very well knew what they have to focus on. So the GTM was a very focused and not very distributed sort of a work. People knew what exactly are we targeting and what's the messaging that needs to be given.
Right, okay. And one of the important area of GTM is to have everybody start walking and talking about your product. And that is where enablement becomes very important. So Ravi, would you like to talk about how do you go about doing enablement?
Sorry, yeah. So this particular slide sort of gives a generic view of an enablement plan. You can, of course, specialize it for your own usage. But what I want to focus on is the stages of the enablement that you need to focus on. So first of all, you need to make people aware. Of course, in an organization, there are people who focus on sales. There are people who are technical, who help the sales process, which is pre-sales. Then you have people who are helping implementation of the product. And these are the consulting services or professional services. You could have your own, or you could depend on partners, or a combination of both. Next, the customers also need to know about this particular product and how do they go about acquiring this particular product, the skill sets around it, etc. And then you actually go into implementation phases. So at the awareness level, what the intention is that people should know what is the product focused on, what is the problem it's solving, what's the kind of pricing for this particular product. When they are talking to a customer, what are those 3 points that they need to focus on? How do they compete, or how do they answer questions which are competitive based? So, like how your product compares to another vendor's product. This is what the awareness is. So any person within the organization should be equipped with enough information for them to go and talk to anyone about this particular product, not necessarily a prospect, not necessarily a customer, but even otherwise, right? The next thing that we get into is focused enablement. This is where you give the technical folks more information, more tools, more training, hands-on information about the product. And you make them comfortable. Because when they go into the market with the sales folks, they have to articulate, they have to demo, and they have to probably create a proof of concept. The third thing that everybody needs to know is what exactly is the service offering. Now that includes your partners. These partners could be helping with you the sales itself. They could be helping you with implementation or with both. The next thing also you need to focus on is how do you go to market? So with partners, do you want to specialize certain partners because the core competence of that particular partner is in a particular vertical? So for example, in our case, there are very specialized partners in government sector, and we wanted them to focus on government only. This doesn't mean that we stop other partners into going government projects, but it does mean that we give more focus to existing government partners who have equity, give them enough skill sets so that they go and talk about the product in the context of the domain expertise in that vertical. We also skill up the partners or the own professional services with implementation skill sets. And we help the implementation skill sets by providing focused support from the engineering organization itself. Now, what that means over here is that that particular team, which is helping the implementation, because this is a new product, there are going to be teething problems. How do you handle those teething problems? Not just from a technology perspective, but also from interacting with the customer perspective is something that is very, very important. And of course, all this means successful implementation. Successful implementation means a customer who's satisfied, and a customer satisfied means that particular customer probably is ready to be a reference for you. And in this particular area, references are very, very important, because the next set of customers who are evaluating your service, they need to know that they are not the ones who are the first ones using this particular product. So references help in that particular case, and you need to have people who can ask the right question to the customers who are going to be your references. They need to know your product as well. So you need to enable them. You need to give them the right set of questions which they can ask the customer to get the right set of answers and not go all over the place. So enablement becomes very, very crucial. It needs to cover a lot of stakeholders, both internal and external, for a successful product marketing plan. So now that we've done our go-to-market, we've done our enablement, the next thing, of course, is to go for acquiring customers. So how did you go about, Mandara?
Yeah. So customer acquisition for our situation was done in, I suppose, similar way as you would do for a new product launch as well. So yeah, I would say things were quite common, except maybe that we had some existing customers that we could reach out to, which maybe a new product might not have. So we had set of customers who either came from beta testing or previous reference with NDAs that we could reach out and have adoption for our product, or the existing customers base that we had because of relaunch. So we could reach out to them as well. Basically, what we did was we identified at least few customers per region so that we have them adopted our solution, and then we hand it over to the sales team to take it over from there for that region, so that they scale and get more adoption done. Unlike B2C customer adoption, for corporate services and corporate adoption, it does take time, and many times consulting effort is involved. So while I articulated customer acquisition, the important follow-up is to monitor the usages. Now that we're talking about cloud services, the usage and growth gives a lot of information and gives feedback about what needs to be done. So that's our next iteration of product evolution or product stage. Ravi, would you want to talk about it?
Yeah, definitely, Mandar. Of course, successful customers mean that your service get used more. Not only do they use it more, but they actually get newer use cases to expand on that particular service. So in that sense, monitoring the usage becomes very, very important, because the other thing it will allow you to figure out is if a customer is not using the service itself or parts of service, which could probably be fine-tuned or need to be, rewritten probably. That could be your decision as well. Now, the good thing with cloud services is that you get one central place from where you can gather metrics and then start analyzing them. And this is sort of a template of what all metrics you would want to, manage at an aggregate level, at a very specific customer level, etc. This all depends from product to product, organization to organization. So this is just representative. You could have situations here where the service is not available in a geographical area, but customers are signing up for that service from another place. So for example, this particular service, we launched first in North America, but we had customers even from Asia Pacific signing up for this particular service in North America data centers. Now that was very important and interesting to us. It gave us an idea of what is the potential of this particular service, that customers are really interested in this service and they are not necessarily focusing on it being available in their region. So latency is not really an issue, which means that we can expand capacity in North America itself and not necessarily get bothered about it being not available in other regions. In other instances, we saw usage drastically going up, and we had to figure out, because the capacity in that particular region was not necessarily planned according to that particular usage. So you have to look at closely monitor the usage and how the service is being grown. The customers are using this particular service, because at the end of the day, that is what also brings up the next set of your feature set. Define what where you need to focus. So of course, monitoring and analyzing is not enough. You need to keep the customer engagement on, because you also need to get firsthand the feedback. So Mandar, you may want to tell us about the Customer Advisory Board and the Partner Advisory Council that we run.
Sure, yeah. So yes, Ravi, so the feedback mechanism has to be much more than just the monitoring aspect of the dashboards that we have with cloud service. You need to have customer and partner connect and relationship to take things forward, so that the new capabilities are then brought into the product or cloud service. This tweet here reminds me on how being responsive to customer brings in customer loyalty. In case of our product cloud service, as we had some relationship that we could bank on, so we kind of started slightly early than generally what you would do for normally a new launch cloud product service. So we had planned for cab and pack. There is an elaborate planning that goes to identify your customers and partners who would be able to participate. You can plan for a virtual or in-place cab and pack. The idea is to invite. The idea for us was to invite both old as well as new customers who have adopted our solution, and same with the partners who have helped adopting some of the new customers. So in the cab and pack, we validated some of the roadmap items that we are going to bring in and get feedback immediately from the customers and their expectations on their plans, and to see if it was in line and whether there was course correction required. So it helped both us to ensure that we are in the right track, as well as customers for them to plan their next stages as we get new capabilities into our service.
Right. So I also want to talk a little about the customer advisory board and the partner council. From the perspective of a net new service, over here, what we wanted to identify is how customers are using, and if one customer listening to another customer gets sort of an idea of what other use cases they could use within their organization itself. Now that essentially means that each one of these customers is helping the other with the adoption of the service. As more and more the service gets used, the momentum gets built, and therefore customers become more interested, and it becomes a snowball effect. The other part is that partners are very, very important. Now, the partners are the one who are implementing or who are building new products on top of your service. And they need special treatment in the sense that they need to be up the curve in terms of the roadmap of your product. And their feedback also matters because they meet more customers than can come into a customer advisory board. So partner councils are the way of reaching out to partners and working with them to see that your service is successful, adopted more, and becomes more useful to others is something that is really, really important.
Yeah. So now that we have, I suppose, on the end of the activity, so I think this is more relevant to my part of the cloud service, which is existing customers. So maybe I'll take up this one. So existing customers in my context is very much relevant, and as we had relaunched the product, it resulted into a lot of existing customers for us moving into this consumption. So as it's normally said, 80% of your customers would go for the next capabilities that you're bringing into the market. And same thing has happened to us also. So we got a lot of higher consumption from our existing customer base, and there were, of course, some of the customers who who didn't get what they really had planned for, whose needs were not getting fit in. But we are sure as we progress, we would be able to accommodate, because we have got a lot of feedback from such customers. And over the coming days, we are expecting that we would be able to expand in those customer base as well. So apart from new customers, we got a lot of leverage with our existing customers, and we could have a good adoption because of that.
Right, so we are at the last slide of our presentation. We are now open to questions. We definitely hope that this has given you some perspective on the product marketing aspects. We've not got into the actual details of further activities because they relate to core marketing, and that's not really a product management area. That's more of a sales and marketing function. Now, in your organization, there may not be very clear-cut, demarcation between the marketing part that product management does and the marketing part that sales and marketing does. But as your organization grows, you will sort of figure that out. With that, we come to the end of our presentation, and we can now take questions.
I think Ravi was answering the questions in the middle of the session. So,
Yes.
yeah. So I think few of them were missed. Just a second, I'm just looking at it. Audience, please ask questions. Now the forum is open for the questions. Yeah, so there is this one. You want me to read these questions?
Yes, any that I have missed?
Yeah. Is user persona mapping of significance to enterprise product management?
Yeah, so user persona is an important aspect. So when you are into this, especially the first stage of building up strategy, you have to have personas in mind as who would be interested in what you're coming up. Whose problem are you solving? So yes, user persona is an important aspect of product management when you are planning for coming up with a new cloud service or product.
So I would like to add there, what has been happening mostly nowadays is part of product management. You also get into this discussion about user journeys. How exactly a user or a set of users are going to use your product. And between these users, there are different roles, there are different objectives that they want to achieve with the product. So any particular product today needs to take care of persona, because when you talk about this product, you are talking to a diverse set of people. And these people need to understand what exactly is their role in context of that service or that product. So that's a very good question. I definitely think user personas are of very big significance to enterprise product management.
The sales team and the partner team or whoever is talking to customer has a very uh, has a good context and understand whom they have to focus to when they are reaching out at the customer organization. So persona understanding is very important. Whose problem are you solving is really important.
All right. There are many questions that have come up. So Ravi and Mandar, would you want to have a look at the questions and answer as per their relevance, or you want me to read them?
Sure. No, no, I'm okay. I'll read them out.
Okay.
So there is a question from Anisha, which says, do your developers engage in implementation process along with delivery managers? So Anisha, I'll answer that question. Our engineering does not necessarily get you know, involved with every implementation, but there are certain implementations which we definitely focus on. These are primarily very first implementation, set of first implementations, or a strategic customer, or in those cases where the implementation has not really gone up to the mark and there is really an issue that needs to be sorted out. This could be an edge case, which we in the product management or engineering have not really thought about. Because when you launch your product, it gets used in multiple different ways that you had not thought about. And when customer describes it to you, you realize that that's a good use case as well. So at that point in time, there is a set of people in engineering who help with the implementation. So the next question there is from Noah, and Noah wants to know, what are user personas?
What are user personas? Okay. User personas are, say, in a business in an organization, there are departments, and in those departments you have different roles. So, example, there is HR, and then there is HR manager, and then there is HR executive or HR, the person who actually work with the employees. So these would be the roles come personas that you might be addressing with. And similarly, for even on the customer side, you might want to say that this customer that you are trying to focus on belongs to certain age and certain geography. So personas are basically specific segment of people that you are trying to uh, address, and the specific problem that you know that they are facing. Generally, because we are talking about enterprise uh, solutions here, we are talking about enterprise roles. So different departments and different teams and roles is what we are referring to when we are talking about personas, and how would they go about, how would we go about coming up with something which will address that persona's problem.
So Mandar, you want to give an example?
Okay, maybe another example can be, I mean, this has been something which has been there for a long time, but maybe I'll take that as an example. So, a banking example where there are customers who has to go for a loan approval process. So, a loan, and then there is a person inside the organization or bank who has to process, and there are multiple people involved in this processing, and it used to be disconnected. Now there are things which have happened and matured, but imagine if it was still so, where there has been a lot of manual steps involved. So there is a customer or citizen or the person who is applying for loan, and now once the loan application happens, he has to produce documents, and then there is a processing that happens inside the bank, and there are different people involved in taking the process forward. So how do you ensure if this manual process, which is a painful part for the person working inside the organization, as well as for the customer, because he doesn't know what is happening inside, and for the bank person, because it's physical, manual, it is really error prone, time consuming, and all of that. So how do you make a low process which is seamless end to end, which addresses all of these personas and make their life easy? So that's one example of how we can focus on persona and get some solution for them.
Right. So the next question is, would be great if you could share your views on differences and similarities between B2B and B2C products. So I'll take that up. This is a very interesting question, specifically from an Oracle perspective, and I'll answer it from Oracle perspective. Most of our products are what I would consider B2B, because Oracle sells to enterprises and not necessarily to individuals. However, our products actually get used a lot of time for B2C use cases, where the customer could be the end user of a product or a service. They could be employees of an organization. They could be citizens participating in a government application. So from that particular perspective, when we design products, we think about scale. We think about how this particular product or platform is actually going to be used. So going back to Mandar's point about personas, it becomes very, very important for us not only to identify personas, but to also identify the quantum and the volume of transactions that these personas will deliver. And therefore, the products that we build need to take care of this particular aspect as well. So you will get a lot of information on internet about differences and similarities between B2B and B2C. But I thought this particular perspective from an Oracle point of view of how our products are, how we build our products, is definitely interesting for you to know. So the next one is how to make a story to delight the customers. Mandar, you want to take that?
Okay. I mean, that is like everyone's aim. So everyone, when they start on a journey of product creation, that's what we really want to do. The challenge is that you have so many things to address. So when you start on the journey, one of the things you realize is there are so many requirements, and you can't address all of those requirements. There are so many things that you can, like you have only a certain resources that you have, and you have to, you can address only so much. So customers' delight, I suppose, would come when you have identified your persona and segment, and so if you know whom you are starting with and then you are growing from there, then at least those customers that you have targeted would have the delight, because at least those customers would get their problem solved, and from there you would like to build on it. So generally when you start MVP, so minimal viable product that you will come up with, will may not address everyone there, but it would address at least, it should address at least some customer segment, maybe a small one, and that could get you that delight that you are planning for, with those important and immediate requirements addressed. So that can be something that can help you to move towards that direction.
So Mandar, the next question is for you. Hi Mandar, what according to you is the best practice for mid-funnel engagement and nurturing? The stagnation of deals in mid-stage is something that we need to address. So I'm guessing you've got customers who are interested in your product, probably started showing interest, but are not really buying the product. So how do you sort of handle that?
Yeah, it is surely when something of that sort happens, there has to be a reason behind it. So there can be various reasons for it to happen, and the most common reason is that you are not addressing the problem completely. That's the reason many of these customers have started on it and then really didn't pick it up. So the gap is to be understood. So where is that? It can be in various levels. It may not be just the product side of the gap. It might be the partner part of the gap as well, where the partner's enablement has not really happened properly. It might be the customers themselves have not really understood the value proposition properly. So there can be gaps. The gap is to be understood, whether it is really a product related gap or where is the gap exactly. It might be sales gap. It might be that the sales people are no more focusing on such customers and they have started focusing on some other services. So we have to get into more details to address it.
So the next question is, does online reputation of an enterprise play any role in this? And I definitely think yes. So I'll give you an example. If Oracle is launching a particular product, the reputation of Oracle is that that product will be for an enterprise use, not necessarily, competing with Microsoft Word or Microsoft Outlook kind of products, right? So, and that would be very right. So online reputation of an enterprise definitely plays a big role in the thought or the mind share that people have about what kind of products and what kind of services will be available. Changing this particular mindset or mind share will require a whole lot of engagement from marketing, social engagement, etc., for you to have that pivot if you are looking at a strategy change. Okay, so the next one is, in the products having long customer acquisition cycle, like 5 to 6 months, what should be the strategy from product management perspective? Manda, you want to take that?
Yes, so generally new products and products which are like enterprise complex products where you require consulting effort may end up with this kind of cycle. I suppose one of the things that from the product management at the early stages, maybe we covered some bit of it, is to ensure that we do verify these strategies that we have started on. That's an important stage to ensure that we are communicating, talking to customers, making them aware about some of the things that we are coming up, and verifying that we are on the right track. The second aspect is, with the minimal MVP thing coming out, trying to see if we can get some beta customers. That's another important aspect. So when we have these 6-month kind of life cycle, if we have a couple of customers during this life cycle to be part of our journey, then the 6-month cycle doesn't seem to be 6-month cycle, because by the end of the 6 months, we would have at least a couple of customers who have already started on our cloud journey or a product adoption journey, which helps the sales guys to then take it forward and start talking about it. And then the either the cycle comes down, or at least there is much more uh, confidence on getting the customers that we want onto on our service.
Okay, so the next question is, in a market that offers a lot of barriers to entry due to large number of competitors offering similar solutions, what should be my approach to enter? Is channel partner the only approach? And I don't think channel partner is the only approach. I feel in this particular case, having a successful customer or a successful set of customers talk for you is probably another approach that you want to take. So while the channel approach will give you scale, you sort of address more people or more customers, more potential people to talk to. Having a successful customer talk on your behalf is also going to be important. So I would say you also need to, specifically from your core product management or sales side, need to focus on customers who are at least willing to listen to you, and throw them, an offer which says, we will help you be successful, and then, go 100% on the implementation success. Now, getting such a customer might be difficult, but that is definitely worth it.
Yeah, and maybe I want to add here some points. So if you are into such a space where there are a lot of products addressing this from other vendors addressing the space, it means that it has become commoditized. So you might want to either rethink about how do you make it exclusive. Now, it again depends on an organization's strategy. It might be that you want to have a pricing strategy to differentiate, or it might be that you want to come up with some differentiators so that you can create your own new segment out of it, so that you then don't become part of the same ecosystem, or customers don't evaluate the same way that they evaluate others, and they might have a different parameters to evaluate. So that it's basically about either to create differentiator uh, in features or capabilities, or differentiators with maybe pricing.
So Mandar, here is another question which you might be interested in answering. Did you encounter a beta shock where customer expectation was vastly different than what you had built? And how did you salvage such a situation?
Fortunately, maybe I don't really have an immediate example to talk about it, but like I said, we didn't have that much of a shock. There were a lot of feedbacks that we got to ensure that we had to maybe change a bit of it, but it was not a shock that really came to us. So I'm just trying to think if I have an example of it. No, not really. So I think if you are verifying and you are in touch with your customer, at least few of them, then the shock doesn't happen. If you're bringing something which is new and maybe slightly ahead of time, maybe these shocks can happen where customers find it useful but not really interested in starting adopting it immediately.
So the next question is, does geographical and or cultural differences between various clients have any impact on the product strategies that we create? So I would say yes, because today with cloud, you get an addressable market which is worldwide, and you have customers who are coming from different backgrounds, maybe different languages, different dialects, etc. That becomes very important if you're creating a voice-based product. So for example, a digital assistant which is voice initiated needs to support dialects which are local to a particular region. On the other hand, if you are creating mobile apps or web applications, that are addressing a large area, you have to ensure that you support localization and internationalization for those particular products. So while you start with a minimum viable product for all sorts of audience, you do have to specialize at some point in time. Okay. How can your
Ravi and
marketing effort? Yeah, sorry.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can we have this as a last question?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how can your marketing efforts seamlessly address both online and offline integration? Sorry.
Seamlessly address online and offline.
So I'm assuming here it means, media, how you get across through media,
yeah,
as well as online properties.
right. So actually, if you see in our the whole steps that we have gone through in getting the GTM, getting into enablement, this one aspect is not something that we really talked about. Like getting into different channels, whether it is online or physical channels to reach out, because that comes under pure marketing purview. And like Ravi was talking about, many of the sales and marketing organization do this based on their regional requirements. And but yeah, so it is about how it's again a plan that needs to happen. It's about how do you want to, in a very crisp way, have a message that's attractive, that gives the value to the customer immediately and also feels interesting. And that will depend on how do you want to reach out to the customers, maybe on different channels, whether it is physical or online channels.
So I think there are still unanswered questions, but Ankita, like you said, we are on top of the hour.
Yeah.
So handing it back to you.
Yeah, actually it's already 3:30 and I'm sure I guess the audience can connect with you or over LinkedIn for other queries or the questions which have not been answered. And thank you Mandar and Ravi for this great session. Thanks for your time and efforts and hence the meaningful conversation. I'm sure each and every listener must have gained something out of it. For all the audience, please provide your feedback as this was our pilot where we invited two professionals, kind of a virtual workshop we tried to do. Please write your inputs. Plus, May month will be a busier month in terms of webinars, 7 sessions coming up next month from our 4 series, product management, data science, GTM and blockchain, and an ad hoc session focusing on startups. For more information, please visit nasscom.in/events. Thanks all of you. Thank you so much, especially Mandar and Ravi. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Ankita.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.